Hey everyone, as I've shared in several recent videos, the Economic Uncertainty Index is at its second highest level on record. And the elevated uncertainty is causing some investors to pause. But let me give you something to think about. What were you doing 5 years ago? Normally I couldn't tell you what I was doing 5 years ago, but this week I actually do know. I was transitioning to a whole new world. My entire team was shifting to working from home as the COVID outbreak hit like a tidal wave. And it was during COVID that I coined my signature phrase, keep your eyes on the horizon. My thought at the time was that everyone was so caught up in the immediacy of the COVID outbreak and all the uncertainty that went with it that investors were stopping in their tracks. A barrage of news headlines, like we're dealing with today, can create massive uncertainty. And in that climate, investors often lose their long-term perspective. So how have commercial real estate investments done since 2020? We've certainly had ups and downs, of course. We had the COVID shutdown, stimulus checks, the post-COVID reopening, supply chain disruptions, surging inflation, and high interest rates. We've had bank closures and some commercial real estate distress. But at the end of 5 years, how has commercial real estate done? If you closed on a real estate deal in April 2020, when uncertainty was going through the roof, how's it doing today? Let's look at the 4 major property types. I'll start with office, which was severely impacted by the pandemic. Before the pandemic, the vacancy rate was 12.2%. It's currently 16.7% after peaking at 17.1% in the second quarter last year. The total absorption since the pandemic is negative 85 million square feet, but absorption was positive 54 million square feet last year. The average rent at the end of 2019 was $28.55, and now it's $29.04. A gain of 1.7%, but of course that hasn't kept up with inflation. Office prices are about $260 per foot, up about 2%, and the average cap rate at the end of 2019 was 7.1%. Now it's 80 basis points higher, about 7.9%. Now for retail. Before the pandemic, the vacancy rate was 4.7%, and it's down 20 basis points to 4.5%. The absorption over the last 5 years totaled 206 million square feet, but remember, space availability has been limited. The average rent is up by 15% to $22.91, and the average price is up about 12% to $225 per foot. Cap rates at the end of 2019 were 6.4%, and today they're about 6.8%. Now, industrial properties had a pre-pandemic vacancy of 4.8%, but they've increased significantly to 6.9% as of the end of 2024. But the rise in vacancy reflects record construction totaling 2 billion square feet. That's with a B. On the flip side, total absorption has been a phenomenal 1.5 billion square feet, and average rents are up by 40.5% to a current rate of $10.47. Industrial prices are up by 60% to $157 per foot, with a cap rate of 6.9%, which is about where it was 5 years ago. Finally, apartments. The record wave of multifamily development over the last 5 years added over 2 million new units, pushing the vacancy rate up from 4.3% to a peak of 5.9% at the beginning of 2024. The vacancy rate has since come down to 5.2% as 660,000 units were absorbed last year. Rents are up 28% since the end of 2019, and prices are up by about 20%, with cap rates 70 basis points higher than they were in 2019 at about 6% on average. So if you bought commercial real estate at the beginning of the pandemic when uncertainty was off the charts, you've probably done pretty well. unless you bought a 1980s vintage urban office tower, which is still facing a tough time. Today, uncertainty is once again extremely high. We're facing tariffs, deportations, the Doge layoffs, and the dismantling of government departments. We have risks of reigniting inflation, the possibility of a recession, or even stagflation. But at the end of the day, commercial real estate investors need to think long term. Construction is dropping, the demographics are favorable, and the US economy has tremendous underlying strength. Look past the noise. Where will we be in 5 years? Arguably, the last 5 years have been particularly challenging, and investors in most property types did well. What will the next 5 years bring? We could face challenges, but as always, investors need to keep their eyes on the horizon.